Hey everyone, this is Duncan from Overland Journals. I'm about to head off on my next Outback trip with my wife, so it's just the two of us. It's not a very hardcore 4x4 track, a lot of gravel roads, a lot of corrugations, that's what I'm expecting. Half of it is going to be more blacktop driving, and then the second half is all gravel roads, probably covering about 2.5 to 3,000 kilometers in this loop. A lot of historical sites along the way to see, and part of it would be the old Garn track. Now I'll explain these and the significance of the history as I go along, but I'm particularly excited because I'm relatively new to Australia, and so every journey I do into the Outback, it's a new discovery for me. It's a place I've never been before, so I'm looking forward to experiencing and enjoying it. So here's the route that we'll be taking.
I love this part where doing trip planning and places we're going to stop. So this is pretty cool. So on the HEMA map, I'll show it to you very quickly, and going to start down here from Adelaide and work our way up to a place called Woomera. From Woomera right up to a place called Coober Pedy. Those of you in Australia probably will most likely know what Coober Pedy is, but for those of you overseas, it's considered to be the opal mining capital in the world. And apart from the opal mining, there's much to see there. And then from there, we'll take the William Creek track. That's a gravel road, so we are off the blacktop into gravel, more corrugated kind of roads, and we'll take the William Creek track and into a place called William Creek. Now, William Creek is quite famous. It used to be part of the Garn track, and there still is a historic pub there, and it's one of those in my bucket list. So I really want to get to William Creek. From there, across to Lake A. It's one of the largest salt lakes in the world, and then back onto the Udawatta track, and then work our way down to Coward Springs. That used to be an old Garn railway siding. Then work our way back down through a place called Roxby Downs. It's a mining town. Go across to Andamuka, and then back again, and then back to Adelaide.
So we get to the town of Woomera. Now, Woomera didn't exist until 1947. So if it didn't exist, what was it? How did it all of a sudden come into being? Well, that's where the interesting part is, because the British government wanted, this is the Cold War era, so they wanted a place where they could easily, have the space, the land space to test defense equipment, atomic equipment, bombs and that sort of thing. So where else? Australia, we got plenty of space here. So there came into being the town of Woomera. Now there's the Woomera village, and then there's the Woomera prohibited area where the testing was done. Now here's the cool thing, because England is 130,000 square kilometers in land size, and the Woomera prohibited area, or the testing range, if you want to call it that, is 122,000. That's almost like way close to the size of the entire country of England. So perfect place for testing. So they created the Woomera prohibited area, which is where they did the testing, and then they had the Woomera village, where all the personnel and all the support services that's needed to run this facility was based. So that's how Woomera came into being. So what's in the name? Now you might wonder, how did the name Woomera come about? Well, if it was something that didn't exist until 1947, how did they just think of that name? Well, here it is. Because it's going to be a weapons testing range or weapons testing center, initially the thinking was to call it Red Sands. That's sort of in line with White Sands, which is the testing base the Americans got in New Mexico. But then the Australians turned around and said, well, let's keep it very authentic. Well, let's keep it Australian. So they came up with the word Woomera, which in Aboriginal language means the spear thrower. Now that's fitting. So that's how the name Woomera came into being. Woomera testing range ran from 1947, that's when it was created, right up until 1971. So at 1971, they shut it down. They no longer needed the facility. I guess they had done all the testing and they had everything, all the data they needed. Didn't need it anymore. Now, its heydays, it had a population of 7,500 people. They tested several missiles and other defense equipment and 7 atomic bombs. That's what they tested. They got the data and then they pretty much shut down the facility in 1971. Today, there's no testing going on, though the facility still belongs to the Australian Air Force. There is a population of 140 people, thereabouts, and it survives purely out of tourism. The Woomera facility was ended in 1971. By about 1966, 67, they started winding the place down because they no longer needed to do any testing. They had done all that. And the British and the Americans took all whatever they needed back. One of the things they didn't take back was a rocket. And they said to the Australians, well, we don't really need it and we don't want to take it all the way back to the US, so you guys do whatever you want with it. So what did we do? We took that rocket and launched a satellite. We were the 3rd country in the world to launch a satellite. So if you're a history buff and if you're into technical stuff, like me, then this is quite a nice place to stop. Like I said, you don't get fantastic landscapes to look at. It's just flat land, really. There's nothing really other than that. But if you're into the technical side of things, if you're into, history, then this is a place you should stop. What I love about traveling in the Outback is, right now we're not even off the main road. The main road is right over there, just over there, and yet the vastness is just amazing. Right behind me is, look at that. That's just off the main road. We probably just 200 meters, 300 at the most from the main road. It's actually a stopover point, and yet look at that scenery. We just stopped for lunch. Lake Hart used to be part of the prohibited area where they did all the testing. Later on, Lake Hart was also a place where they mined for salt, regular salt that we use in our meals. And Lake Hart has the highest quality of salt. Inherently, salt has gypsum in it, so the refining process has to remove the gypsum before you can get salt that's consumable by humans. So it's a costly process, whereas Lake Hart, the salt doesn't have gypsum, and the result of that, you have a very higher quality salt. So they did mine salt for quite a while, but then later on, despite its purity and less costs involved in refining it, they still found that it's more economical for them to get salt out elsewhere. And besides, generally speaking, in Australia and in the rest of the world, there's considerable amount of salt supply anyway. So for that reason, they don't mine salt here anymore. Whenever we travel, something we like to do is take a little souvenir with us, and we keep it in our, along with all the other souvenirs we've got from our travels, and it becomes something to remember. It becomes a wonderful talking point when friends and family are over. So we're going to do the same here. We're going to get a bit of salt, the purest salt in Australia, so we've got to get some, and keep it as a souvenir.